Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Kamran Akhtar Siddiqui with a video on email writing. When we talk about email, first of all, we need to know very briefly what an email is. Well, an email is a text-based mail sent via the computer or smartphone or mobile phone in these modern times from one person to another. And it is one-to-one and one-to-many sort of communication, which is almost free all around the world. And when we talk about its structure, we need to structure our email in the following manner. So first of all, we need to figure out and we need to decide who are we going to address and who is the main recipient of the person uh, of the message. Then we move to subject. And after writing the subject, we talk about the message text, and then we are going to talk about attachments and any signature required. Now, when we talk about address, it's the address of the recipient. You might have seen in the email addresses that to section, right? And it is the place where we type the email address of the recipient. And just below that, we find two more options, CC and BCC. We are going to talk about them in a little while, but we should use BCC option, which means blind carbon copy, to protect email addresses unless everyone knows each other. So this is how sometimes the things work with the BCC option. And it's good to maintain an address book because sometimes you don't remember the email addresses of the person, so you can maintain an address book in Google Drive or elsewhere in your Google account. And that is why it is essential to create groups for convenience, because in business communication you have to have teams for certain tasks and certain projects. So creating groups is extremely convenient for you to communicate with all the members of the group. Okay, when we talk about the to line and the subject line are integrated in a way, because each individual on the to line is responsible for taking the action or part of the action outline on the subject line, and the message relates directly to them. So if you place, for example, my name on the in the address line and write a subject, I'm the key person to take an action on the given subject. And when we talk about the CC line, no action or response is expected of individuals on the CC line. CC means carbon copy, and the recipient needs only to read or file the message. So if you are sending me an email, my name or my email address will be in the to line, and the person who you want to know about this, his or her email will be on the CC line, because you just want them to understand, to know what is happening, just to add this to their information. So the individuals whose work is indirectly affected by the communication should be included on the CC line. And what about BCC then? Well, we use BCC field very sparingly, very rarely, but it's a good option as mentioned earlier. In general, it's important to use the BCC line uh, very carefully. There is always a chance that the individual on the BCC line could hit reply all and unintentionally reveal that the matter was worsened. So if you see you send an email to a person, you want some information from them, and you kept a very important figure on the BCC line, and unintentionally the person hit the reply all button, and the secret is revealed that there is another person who is actually a part of this communication but was actually hiding behind the curtains. So you need to use this very carefully, and this demands extreme care from the recipient side also. Okay, moving forward to the subject. Well, avoid sending email with no subject. Sometimes we receive emails in which there is no subject, and it is very difficult to comprehend from the interface what the message of this email is, because obviously it is very difficult for a manager or for any individual uh, to see and read all the emails in one day. In the modern times, you have to have subject in order to make your email uh, ask for a reply. Fine. So you need to write a subject line that is informative, that is direct, and it states the main issue in the email, right? So you have to keep it short. Long subjects don't show well in the browser windows and are or often ignored as well. So you have to use a sentence case and not all caps. So this is something important to know, that we have to use sentence case and not all caps, all capitalization. uh, what happens sometimes, we use the words attention or confidential, and these sort of words can be to some extent written because they demand a prompt action and a very conscious effort to keep the thing secret. But in general, the subject line should be in sentence case and not all caps. Besides this, you have to make your subject talk by including a verb. So rather than writing one word subject saying help or bonus, anything like that, you should have a phrase, and you that should start with a subject. So for example, need help regarding assignment. So this subject is something which is starting with a verb and which is talking to the recipient that the person needs this thing, and it's not too wordy and it's not too lengthy. So you need to be very careful about drafting the subject line also, because this is something which is visible on the interface. The reader cannot read, the recipient cannot read the whole email in one go. So you need to have a good subject. Moving to the next part, that is greetings. Well, it is suggested that we should always open our email with a greeting. For formal or business emails, use the surname and not the first name. This is something we have already discussed in the letter format also. So, dear Mrs. Kwabunga, dear sir or madam, remember you have to be very careful about their punctuation and their capitalization also. So you can see what words are capital, proper nouns, and for example, what punctuation are being used, comma or colon. And then if you are contacting a company, not an individual, you may write dear concerned or to whom it may concern. So it's very essential to figure out who the recipient of your communication is. Talking about the message text, you should keep the message focused and readable. Keep it short. Brevity and clarity are the two key ingredients when you are talking about an email. And use paragraphs as per good news, bad news, or persuasive format. So we have already talked about these things. So you can format your email text according to the structures, direct and indirect. So it is up to you now to decide what is the best approach for a certain piece of communication. And then it's essential to break into paragraphs and skip lines between them, but you need to be very careful about this also, that the message should not be too lengthy as well, because it is suggested that if the message is too lengthy, then it is better to include a kind of attachment rather than writing everything on in the message text. And then write in standard professional English with proper capitalization and correct spelling, and code bake using context, because if you are replying to an email, so you should use context and you should refer to previous communication. And obviously you should identify yourself clearly as well if you are communicating with someone for the very first time, and you can start your communication by saying the reason I'm writing for is this, or I'm writing uh, to know, or I'm writing to discuss with you. So this is a very interesting and very convenient phrase which you can use in order to start your communication with the recipient. Talking about attachments, you can attach obviously documents and URL links as well. So, and if their documents are large, you can compress large attachments and send attachments only when they are absolutely necessary. Otherwise, you can just, keep the document somewhere and you can share the URL with the people, and then they can download as per their convenience. So this is also essential. And if you are attaching a document, mention this thing in the message text that that this or that document is attached here with. Moving to the email signature, use an appropriate signature which should be brief, 4 to 5 lines, and that has to be informative, because you should provide all contact information. So your name, designation, or your place of work, and then you can also talk about your contact information as well. And if you are talking about more professional and more business oriented uh, email signatures, so you should not include pictures or quotes or animations. And whenever a piece of contact information changes, make sure your signature is updated accordingly, because it is essential to keep the things updated rather than making people contact you on your previous contact information and causing you as well as themselves unnecessary trouble. So once you are done with everything, before sending, please be careful about spelling and grammar and punctuation, because these mistakes give a very bad impression and can sometimes even change the meaning of the text also. So read the email through the eyes of the recipient before you send it, and then finally, once you are ready, you just click the button send, and the email will be sent. So thanks for watching this. There is another video on choosing proper um, words, openings and closings. So you can watch the next video and learn more about it.